Hi, I'm Christine Russo, and welcome to What Just Happened. Today we'll discuss what's fad, trend, or strategy. We welcome Brandon Real and Michael Zakkor. Welcome. We were the featured thought leaders at a dinner on AI in retail. And that's how this podcast came to be. And it's very exciting that we decided to do that. So, what's exciting about discussing fad, trend, or strategy? Michael, what do you think?
Fad is observational, the trend is analytical, and then the strategy, if you move to that, is how it becomes an integral part of what you're doing.
A strategy is something you're spending on. Brandon.
So I completely agree about the approach, whether it's a fad trend or what it really means for the retailers. If your hype cycle actually can translate to operationalization of the innovation, then it matters. So it all comes down to tangible results.
The risk is, if something seems like a fad or a trend, does that limit innovation?
If something is a fad, it's worth keeping an eye on. A lot of people might be doing it, but you have to keep a level head and say, is this right for my organization? Despite the hype cycle, despite the appearance of everybody doing it, does this thing have legs? And then after that reflection period and kind of being patient, level headed, then if that fad starts to move into a trend, then you have to get serious and say, well, where do I stand in terms of this trend? That's where you start asking, organizationally, is this trend something we need to integrate? And what's the cost of integrating it to what we're doing? But maybe more importantly, what's the cost of not doing it?
So a fad can sort of move to a trend, and a trend can be part of your strategy.
If you're not innovating, you're quickly becoming irrelevant as a retailer or a brand. You have to always be aware of the fads. And I mentioned analyze the trends and then determine which of these you actually want to implement into your strategies. And it's really a continuous cycle. The rate of change is so relentless that you can't afford to wait without experimenting. And we've seen the best retailers take those calculated risks. They'll always succeed. They often fail. But those that are relevant and successful are actually innovating.
Okay, so let's get into some topics. I'll say a topic, and you say if it's a fad, trend, or strategy. Let's see how it goes. So we're going to go in a circle. Brandon, you're on my left. Michael, you're over here. So you're Brandon, Michael. So buy now, pay later.
It's a strategy.
Michael.
Misplaced trend.
Alternative payment methods like Venmo in store.
It's a trend.
Trend.
Unionization. Brandon.
It's the trend.
Michael.
It's a rapidly increasing trend.
Moving to strategy, perhaps.
Yeah.
Loyalty programs. Brandon.
It is a strategy. If you're not in it to win it, you're out.
Michael.
Strategy.
Charging for returns. Brandon.
I hope it's a fad.
Interesting. Michael.
It's a trend.
Greenwashing. Brandon.
It's a trend, unfortunately.
Michael.
For a lot of companies, it's a strategy.
Repairing companies with repair policies. Brandon.
A strategy.
Michael.
Should be a strategy.
CPG products behind plastic. Brandon.
It's a very misplaced and unfortunate strategy.
Michael.
I'm going to say it's a fad.
Let's hope. Let's hope for the greater good. Physical retail. Brandon.
It is a strategy, and it's here to stay.
Michael.
Tier 1 strategy.
Brandon. Live shopping.
Trend.
Michael.
Strategy.
Let's talk about it. Michael, why do you think live shopping is a strategy?
Both live streaming and shoppable video fit into a larger trend, which is shoppable content. 83% of all content consumed on the internet is video. The line between what is content, what is entertainment, what is advertisement, and what is an opportunity to sell something to somebody is blurring.
Brandon?
Yeah, I think to Michael's point, it's increasingly becoming part of our subculture, and there might be some generational differences, and it will become more intuitive for all generations. But we do know that millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha exist in the really viewing content in video forms. They're not looking at static news or static pictures anymore. This is where this generation is engaging and communicating and learning and inspiring. So why not go to where the market is? And to Michael's point, 83% of the internet consumed is now video form. So retailers and brands who ignore this really is at your peril. I think a lot of it depends on the execution side. There is a direct dependency on inventory availability in a real-time, extremely real-time manner. And to really inspire confidence in consumers, when they click that buy now button, that inventory is available and can be fulfilled and shipped within seconds. And all that shipping notifications can be emailed or texted to the user immediately. So a lot of back-end infrastructure has to be built to really ramp up quickly to meet the demand that's going to come out of the next generation of video content consumed. So we've seen the brands that are successful in this space invest hundreds of millions of dollars in supply chain optimization and inventory, real-time inventory availability capabilities, and really driving that mobile experience to the next level and optimizing it.
I just want to add some thoughts, and maybe I'm wrong, but it's a good place and it's more commonly embraced by manufacturers that present themselves with different brands. So you are in major control of that supply chain. But I don't think we've actually seen like full-on brands that are what we think of as US brands, D2C, or like what we used to call specialty store retailers and brands really in that space because of fulfillment, but also just when you think about their distribution, they're manufacturing to their stores, their e-com, and maybe some wholesale. And they're not factoring in that component. And that's why I think it's lower profile, because it's not really proper brands per se. The minute someone crosses over in that higher profile and really is able to do it well, maybe that's the catalyst. But it's a very good point, because the front end is really just almost headless, because it's really attached to a back end of massive manufacturing and supply chain. And Michael, you're the expert. Am I right? Am I kind of right? What's the story?
Yeah, no, you are. And here's the thing, right? So, Brandon, you are exactly right. If you don't get those right and people just start having bad experiences with shoppable content, then you've got a problem. But it's part of the larger move to immersive commerce. Fortunately for marketers and brands, that move is mostly on the front end. So you don't have to make too many significant changes to your supply chain, logistics, and fulfillment plan. You either have a good one for e-commerce right now, or you don't. And if you have a good one and you start moving to more immersive, shoppable content forms of e-commerce, you'll be just fine.
Okay, let's talk about unions. Now, we're talking about retail, so obviously it's more of like a Starbucks situation, but everyone's watching. So, and there's a bigger zeitgeist going on, if I may. So, Brandon, where did you come in on that? Were you at trend or strategy or fad?
I think it's really a strategy. I think it's I was borderline thinking it was a trend, but it's all about recognizing and acknowledging that retail is a profession, and there are dedicated, committed professionals who deserve the right to earn a livable wage and have the right benefits, and also the benefits that most of us have. Retail is a foundational part of our economy, and they deserve the rights and the benefits and the protections that most of us experience in the corporate world or other industries. Starbucks has become just the story of the hour, just because it's such an omnipresent business, and it's all over the U.S. And we do know the CEO Schultz's stance on unionization versus the unions themselves. So there's been a big conflict, and it's been an interesting story to watch. But I'm rooting for the barristers in this case, and they deserve the opportunity for career growth, advancement. They deserve the opportunity for benefits and livable wages, especially in light of the fact that we're experiencing relentless inflation, cost of living increases, unprecedented levels. Unionization is a good thing in this matter, and I truly hope that becomes more of a consistent narrative for the retail and grocery workers.
I just want to add a commentary, and Michael, and I'd like you to weigh in, is that I think we're seeing a lot of this post-pandemic. So we went into the pandemic, we're family, we need everyone to pull together. We're in this together. Okay. baristas went back to work, and maybe it was a risky thing because it was in person, or it was extra hours because there were labor shortages. Like there were pressures on the workers across the board, and in all industries were focused on retail. And come 18 months later, earnings reports are out, salary information is out, profitability information is out, and yet the workers are not really seeing the benefit of the family we're pulling together, et cetera. So I'm trying to connect the dots, and this is my question for you, Michael. Is this unionization move a direct result of an unfulfilled promise as a result of the pandemic?
I think that's part of it. There's a bigger issue here. A far larger percentage of Americans work in retail than in the manufacturing sector. We as retail advocates and professionals, we understand the hard work that goes into it, the thankless nature of being a frontline worker. And I think, big retailers, where would they be without the people who are on the front lines? In principle, I agree with what Brandon's saying is this is, really important for retail workers. It's like, yeah, retail workers need more pay. They need better benefits. They need better working conditions. We'll let you know what your schedule is on Sunday night. You might get 20 hours this week. You might get 30. We might ask you for 50. You're not going to get overtime. You get sick, you can't come in, we're not going to pay you. Oh, maternity leave. Right.
I want to propose something. It's like a Maslow's triangle, where the CEO, let's say, is at the top and the worker base is at the bottom. You're built on your worker base. The financial challenge for the organization is the skill set for the top is so unique and so honed through experience, education, and actual human ability of a very small amount of people, that the most compensation goes there. And the foundation, so the strength is in numbers. Okay, so the strength is in numbers, less so in terms of specialty skill, but you're nowhere without them. But comp wise, it's very, very different, because first of all, you're, obviously with tens of thousands of the foundation, the financial structure can only handle so much. So I go back to executive comp and publicly traded companies. Everyone can see what you're doing, who you're paying, and where your profits are.
I think the narrative for a lot of firms is to start addressing the health, wellness, and being of their workforce. I think the ESG, and the environment, social, and governance has become a strategy. I think that's another thing that you've seen pop up in a lot of annual reports for a lot of Fortune 100 companies, is their commitment to workforce, to their work-life balance, to their wellness, to their health, to their safety, and putting all these governance in place to ensure that happens. And it's great to see these public proclamations, but the execution in many cases is not there. And perhaps the evolution we're seeing with the rise of unionization is that they're forcing companies actually fulfill these promises they're putting in their annual reports, i.e. what's happening at Starbucks and others. So one thing is to state these in a public forum, and in Twitter and LinkedIn and in annual reports. Other things actually execute and fulfill those promises.
Why is this happening now? And is it, unmet promises of the pandemic, et cetera? That's one reason. You go back 30, 40 years ago, and the difference between a CEO's pay and a frontline worker's pay was somewhere between 10, 15, 20x. So if a frontline worker was making $30,000 a year, the CEO was making $550,000 a year. Now that disparity can go as high as 80 to 100 to 150 to 200x. So you have CEOs making $40 million a year, and frontline workers, when adjusted for inflation, who are still making $30,000 a year. I think people are waking up to income disparity.
Okay, let's get into loyalty, because as far as I can tell, the ones with robust programs are clearly pulling away from the pack. There are absolute leaders in this realm. Brandon, let's start with some initial perspectives there.
I think loyalty as a strategy has been one that's been around for a very long time. I think now in the just connected digital world and well, the consumer insights, if you're not in it, you don't have a good, well-developed loyalty strategy that connects to video commerce and live streaming and TikTok and Instagram as a really dominant part of your lives, and you're out of the game. So we've seen the retailers that do this very successfully. I think Starbucks is the preeminent one. We can mention them about unions, but loyalty, they have their app. It's for payments, it's for personalization, it's for loyalty. And is the value really there for the amount of money you spend on a customized latte? Yes and no. You can argue that. Sephora is another one that's done outstandingly well. Just the perception they drive, the sense of community, the value you get, the points you accumulate, and they gamify the system in a way that it really resonates with Gen Z and millennials. And Target's another one that does this outstandingly well. And I can name a few more. Best Buy, Dick's Sporting Goods, and others where we spend a lot of our time and money because the time we're at where our lives with our kids, we're constantly buying new electronics and new sports equipment. Even that goodwill of a $10 gift certificate or that personalized emails or whatever it is, loyalty schemes actually matter, and it's more perception driven. If anything, if you're looking for a significant value you get from loyalty programs, you might not get it, but actually you feel part of the community, you feel part of the brand, you feel part of the movement. You're on top of the trends. There are many ways to make loyalty strategies work, and so I think it has to be considered. What is the value you actually provide the consumer, and is it really differentiated versus other loyalty programs?
So we're in agreement that it's a strategy, which means we're going to put money behind it, right? If we were retailers, we're going to put money behind this. And then within the strategy, there are trends and fads. So for example, Web3 is really a drill down of extreme loyalty program. You could call it an offshoot, or if loyalty is the umbrella, it's like a little bubble that floats under there. So you have to be able and be prepared to kind of experiment within your strategy. What do you feel about that, Michael?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I could said it better than you did. I mean, there are fads and trends within the strategy. Where I think my thinking on loyalty programs has evolved over the last year or two is I used to think about it in terms of what do we need to do to make the consumer loyal to us? And I've come around to a different way of looking at it, which is what can we do to be loyal to the consumer? It's really an institutional mindset about how do we support and stay loyal to the consumer, whether it's a little bit more white glove service, better communication, personalization, really show that, hey, you took a chance on our product, you took a chance on our store, and we want to be loyal to you because you made that decision.
Michael, you're right. I think there are retailers and brands that are taking that approach. Chewy famously is, kind of the poster child for killing with kindness, really going out there to then garner loyalty to their product. And I think they are still in that lead position.
I will also add, Christine and Michael, that the relationship between the consumer and the brands is a delicate and fragile one. That it all comes down to execution and meeting the brand's promise and ensuring that relationship is a good one. And a good loyalty program does not equate to the customer lifetime value if you're not executing against your brand promise and you're not providing good service, exceptional products, good experiences, removing as much friction as you can in the experience. So loyalty programs on its own can't really operate independently from executing against your brand promise, whether in store or through digital channels. It's a great strategy to have, and within that strategy, there are fads and trends, but it all comes down to execution and performance, both with the physical store, digital, and with our customer associates.
I couldn't have said it better. And that's a great place to wrap. I want to thank you both. This was a lot of fun.
It was. Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Michael?
I have a blast talking to you both as always, and let's definitely do it again.
Cheers to the Rat Pack.
Cheers.
Right. Thank you.